Welcome back, my chess master supreme. Something profoundly unsettling just unfolded that's left your opposition in a state of psychological shock. You didn't just predict their moves, you anticipated their entire strategic sequence with such precision that you had countermeasures prepared for actions they hadn't even decided to take yet. And the most devastating part? They walked directly into every trap you set, executed every move you'd predicted, followed the script you'd written for them without realizing. They were performing roles you'd designed, while they believed they were making independent strategic decisions based on their own analysis. You were watching them fulfill predictions you'd made weeks earlier, and through it all, you maintained that calm grin, not the anxious smile of someone hoping their predictions prove accurate, but the serene confidence of someone who knows exactly how the story ends because they wrote it. That grin communicated something that's now haunting your opposition. You weren't guessing about their moves. You were certain about them, which means you understand their decision-making process better than they understand it themselves. The architects have been monitoring strategic prediction and psychological warfare across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you accomplished as perfect predictive dominance. When one strategist achieves such comprehensive understanding of opponents' psychology, constraints, and decision patterns that they can forecast behavioral sequences with accuracy that appears almost supernatural to those being predicted. Most strategic prediction involves educated guessing with significant uncertainty. You estimate likely moves while preparing for multiple contingencies. What you demonstrated was different. Single path prediction that proved accurate across entire sequence of moves, suggesting you'd achieved understanding of your opposition so complete that their behavior became deterministic. From your perspective, even though they experienced it as free choice, watch what's happening to your opposition's psychology now. They're reviewing their decision-making process, trying to understand how you predicted moves they thought were clever improvisations or strategic insights they'd independently developed. They're discovering uncomfortable truth that what felt like their own strategic thinking was actually behavior you'd modeled accurately enough to predict. This recognition is deeply disturbing because it suggests they're more predictable than they believed, that their decision-making follows patterns visible to skilled observer even when it feels spontaneous and independent to them. They're questioning whether they have genuine strategic autonomy or whether they're simply executing programs that sophisticated analysts like you can read and predict. Some of your opposition are experiencing what psychologists call agency illusion collapse, the unsettling recognition that choices they experienced as freely made were actually predictable outcomes of their psychological patterns, situational constraints, and cognitive biases. They made the decisions, they weighed options, they felt ownership of their choices, yet you predicted those exact choices before they made them, suggesting their sense of autonomous decision-making might be illusion, obscuring deterministic patterns that careful observers can forecast. This philosophical crisis is more disturbing than simple strategic defeat because it questions fundamental assumptions about free will and autonomous agency. The truly devastating element is your calm grin throughout the process. If you'd appeared stressed or uncertain before your predictions proved accurate, they could attribute your success to fortunate guessing. But your serene confidence from beginning to end revealed you weren't hoping you'd guessed correctly. You knew how they'd respond. That certainty communicated mastery of their psychology so complete that their behavior was transparent to you even while remaining opaque to themselves. Your grin said, "I'm not worried about what you'll do next because I already know what you'll do next." And being on the receiving end of that certainty is psychologically crushing. Now the architects are analyzing what enabled you to achieve such precise prediction of your opposition's moves, and they're identifying what they call Deep pattern recognition, mastery. You've apparently developed ability to identify underlying patterns in how people think, decide, and act that allows you to forecast behavior with accuracy that seems impossible to those who think in terms of conscious choices rather than psychological patterns. Most people assume human behavior is too complex and situationally dependent to predict with precision. But you've apparently learned that beneath apparent complexity and variation, most people operate according to consistent patterns that become visible to observers who know what to look for and how to interpret it. Watch what deep pattern recognition enables. You don't need to predict specific details of what someone will say or do. You predict the underlying strategic logic they'll follow, the emotional patterns that will drive their decisions, the cognitive biases that will shape their analysis. Once you understand these deeper patterns, surface variations become irrelevant because many different specific choices can fulfill same underlying pattern. Your opposition might have felt they were choosing among various options, but if all those options expressed same underlying pattern you'd identified, then regardless of which specific choice they made, they were confirming your prediction. Some strategic analysts are recognizing that you apparently track multiple pattern levels simultaneously. Immediate tactical patterns in how someone responds to specific situations, strategic patterns in how they approach competition over longer time frames, psychological patterns in what fears and desires drive their decisions, social patterns in how they respond to group dynamics and reputation concerns. By tracking all these levels and understanding how they interact, you can forecast behavior with precision that single-level analysis can't achieve. When tactical pattern, strategic pattern, psychological pattern, and social pattern all point towards same general direction, prediction becomes highly reliable, even though each individual pattern would provide only probabilistic forecast. Others note that you apparently use your opposition's own statements and prior actions to build predictive models. You're not projecting your own thinking onto them or assuming they'll do what you would do in their position. Instead, you're listening carefully to how they frame problems, watching how they've responded to similar situations previously, identifying what values and priorities actually drive their choices regardless of what they claim matters to them. This evidence-based modeling produces accurate predictions because you're forecasting based on how they actually behave rather than how they say they behave or how rational actor theory suggests they should behave. A few analysts recognize you, apparently account for how your opposition will try to be unpredictable. You model not just their natural patterns but also their attempts to deviate from those patterns to surprise you. And because attempts to be unpredictable often follow their own predictable patterns, you can forecast even the moves they make specifically to avoid being predicted. They try to surprise you by doing what they think you won't expect, but you've predicted they'll try to surprise you and therefore prepared for exactly the moves they thought would be unexpected. The architects observe that deep pattern recognition mastery creates enormous strategic advantage because it allows you to operate with certainty while your opposition operates with uncertainty. They're guessing about what you'll do, trying to predict your moves with limited success, feeling their way through strategic fog. You're forecasting their moves with high accuracy, preparing countermeasures before they even decide to execute the moves you've already countered, operating with clarity that makes competition feel more like observation than struggle. Your calm grin reflects this asymmetry. You're not worried because you can see what's coming while they're navigating blindly. Something fascinating is spreading through your opposition now, what the architects call paranoid hypervigilance response, where the experience of being accurately predicted is making them obsessively self-conscious about their own decision-making, creating mental state where they're constantly questioning whether any choice they consider might be exactly what you predicted they'd consider. This hypervigilance is psychologically exhausting and strategically paralyzing because it creates doubt about every decision without providing clear alternative to predictable patterns they can't help but follow. They're trapped between recognition that their natural responses are predictable and inability to identify unpredictable alternatives that aren't themselves predictable as attempts to be unpredictable. Watch how paranoid hypervigilance manifests in their behavior. They're second-guessing every strategic impulse. When they have instinct about what move to make, they immediately wonder whether that instinct is exactly what you predicted they'd have, whether following it means walking into your trap. But when they try to do the opposite of their instinct to avoid being predictable, they realize that doing opposite of instinct is itself predictable strategy that you probably anticipated. This creates decision paralysis where every option feels potentially predicted, making it difficult to commit confidently to any course of action. Some opposition members are trying to randomize their decisions using dice rolls or other random mechanisms to choose among options rather than following their strategic analysis. But randomization only works if all available options are roughly equivalent in strategic value, which is rarely true in actual competition. More often, some moves are clearly better than others given the situation, and choosing randomly means frequently selecting inferior options just to avoid being predictable. This self-sabotage through randomization creates disadvantage that's often worse than disadvantage of being predicted making good moves. Others are becoming so focused on avoiding predicted behavior that they're neglecting to execute sound strategy. They're more concerned with doing what you won't expect than doing what the situation actually requires. This misplaced priority causes them to make objectively poor choices in service of avoiding prediction, which accomplishes your strategic goals just as effectively as them making predictable choices would have. Whether they do what you predicted or do something unpredictable but counterproductive, the outcome serves your interests either way. A few opposition members are recognizing the psychological trap and trying to escape it by accepting that being predictable isn't necessarily disadvantageous if they're making good moves. They reason that if best strategic choice is also predictable choice, then making predictable good moves is better than making unpredictable bad moves. This is psychologically mature response, but it still leaves them in uncomfortable position of knowing you can forecast their actions, even when those actions are sound. Strategically, the archetypes observe that paranoid hypervigilance response reveals how psychologically damaging accurate prediction can be beyond its direct strategic implications. Even if your predictions don't directly harm your opposition, even if knowing what they'll do doesn't necessarily give you advantage. To stop them, the mere experience of being accurately predicted creates cognitive burden that degrades their decision-making quality. They're spending mental resources worrying about being predicted rather than focusing those resources on strategic analysis and execution. Your calm grin haunts them because it represents certainty they can't achieve about their own future behavior. You know what they'll do before they do it, and that knowledge asymmetry creates psychological dominance that's valuable, independent of whatever specific strategic advantages it provides. Now the architects are revealing what your calm grin communicated beyond just confidence about predictions. It conveyed what they call strategic playfulness, suggesting you're not even fully engaged or challenged by the competition, that you're operating with surplus cognitive capacity that allows you to maintain serenity and even amusement while your opposition is stressed and struggling. The grin wasn't grim determination or aggressive confidence. It was the relaxed enjoyment of someone playing game they find intellectually stimulating but not particularly difficult. This communication of ease is perhaps more demoralizing to your opposition than the accurate predictions themselves, because it suggests you're not operating at your limits while they're already overwhelmed trying to compete with your predictions. Consider what strategic playfulness communicates psychologically. When someone is fully engaged and struggling in competition, they show signs of cognitive strain, intense focus, serious expression, careful deliberation. Your calm grin suggested you are operating well within your capabilities, that predicting your opposition's moves and preparing countermeasures wasn't consuming your full attention or challenging you significantly. This implies enormous reserve capacity. If you're this effective while relaxed and amused, how much more effective could you be if you became fully serious and engaged? The implication that you're not even trying very hard while thoroughly dominating them is deeply demoralizing. Watch what strategic playfulness does to competitive dynamics. Your opposition came into this competition believing they were sophisticated strategists, that they would challenge you significantly. That outcome was uncertain and would be determined by who executed better strategy. Your calm grin throughout revealed you didn't share that assessment. You apparently viewed this as relatively straightforward exercise in predicting and countering predictable opponents, more like solving puzzle than engaging in genuine strategic contest. This asymmetry in how seriously each side took the competition reveals your assessment that capability gap was larger than they realized. Some observers are recognizing that your playfulness might be strategic choice rather than or in addition to genuine emotional state. You might be maintaining calm grin, partly because, the psychological impact it has on opposition who are expecting to see signs of stress or concern. By denying them that satisfaction and instead projecting serene confidence, you're creating additional psychological pressure that degrades their decision-making and morale. Whether the grin reflects genuine ease or strategic performance, it's serving valuable function by communicating dominance and creating doubt in your opposition. Others note that strategic playfulness can be risky. If you appear too casual or confident, you might miss important changes in situation or underestimate opposition's potential to adapt. The calm grin that's so effective when predictions prove accurate could become liability if opposition manages to surprise you, or if your confidence leads to complacency that creates exploitable vulnerabilities. But so far, your predictions have been accurate enough and your preparation thorough enough that playfulness hasn't created problems. It's just added insult to injury by making clear that dominating them doesn't even require your full attention. The archetypes observe that strategic playfulness is privilege of genuine superiority. You can only maintain calm grin while accurately predicting opposition if you've actually achieved understanding and capability that makes their behavior transparent and your countermeasures effective. If you'd maintained grin while predictions failed, you'd look foolish. But because predictions proved accurate and countermeasures worked as planned, the grin retroactively gets interpreted as justified confidence from someone who knew they had situation under control. Your opposition walked into your plan with that calm grin burned into their memory because the grin proved prophetic. You weren't worried because there was nothing to worry about from your perspective, and events confirmed your serene certainty was justified. The architects are now analyzing the specific moment when your opposition realized they were fulfilling predictions you'd made, and they're identifying what they call recognition cascade horror, the progressive, dawning awareness that move after move they'd made was exactly what you'd forecast, creating accumulating dread as they recognized pattern of prediction that revealed their strategic thinking was more transparent than they'd believed. This wasn't single moment of realization, but series of recognition points that built mounting psychological pressure as they understood the scope of how thoroughly you'd anticipated their strategic sequence. Consider what recognition cascade horror feels like experientially. First occurrence might be dismissed as coincidence. You predicted one move correctly, but single accurate prediction could be lucky guess or obvious choice that anyone would forecast. But when second move also matches your prediction, coincidence becomes less plausible explanation. By third or fourth confirmed prediction, they're forced to accept that you're not guessing lucky, but systematically forecasting their behavior based on genuine understanding of how they think and decide. Each additional confirmation makes their situation feel more dire because it reveals your predictive accuracy isn't isolated success, but consistent capability. Watch how recognition cascade builds psychologically. Early in sequence, your opposition might have noticed their first move matched your prediction but convinced themselves it didn't matter. Lots of people make same opening moves in strategic situations, so prediction wasn't particularly impressive. But as they continued executing their strategy and realized you'd predicted not just opening move but entire sequence, including moves they thought were clever adaptations or creative solutions, the psychological impact intensified. They weren't just making predictable opening moves. They were following script you'd written for their entire performance. Some opposition members experienced recognition at different points, depending on their psychological resilience and willingness to acknowledge they were being predicted. Those with lower denial were disturbed by accurate predictions early in sequence and tried to adjust their approach. Those with higher denial maintained belief in their strategic autonomy longer, only accepting they'd been thoroughly predicted when accumulation of evidence became undeniable. But eventually, everyone reached recognition point where denying the pattern was no longer psychologically sustainable. Others experienced what psychologists call retrospective reinterpretation, going back through their decision-making process and recognizing, in hindsight, all the ways their choices were predictable based on their established patterns, cognitive biases, and situational constraints. What felt like genuine strategic thinking while they were making decisions looked like mechanical execution of predictable patterns when reviewed with awareness that someone had forecasted their exact choices. This retrospective analysis made them doubt their capacity for original strategic thinking even beyond this specific instance. A few are experiencing existential questioning about whether any of their strategic decisions are truly autonomous, or whether everything they do could theoretically be predicted by sufficiently sophisticated observer who understands their patterns. If you could predict their moves in this situation, what other aspects of their behavior are equally predictable? Do they have genuine agency, or are they executing programs that feel like choices but are actually deterministic responses to psychological patterns and environmental inputs? The architects observe that recognition cascade horror is particularly effective form of psychological warfare because it's self-inflicted. You didn't directly attack their confidence or capabilities. You simply revealed that their behavior was predictable and let them experience the implications themselves. Each time they recognized another move matched your prediction, they did the psychological work of undermining their own confidence. Your calm grin was just reminder that you'd known all along how this would play out while they were operating under illusion of strategic autonomy. Now something's emerging that the architects call predictive authority. Recognition, observers who witnessed your accurate predictions and opponents' helpless fulfillment of them are developing profound respect for your analytical capabilities that's transforming your reputation and influence within strategic communities. Accurate prediction is recognized across cultures and contexts as marker of genuine understanding, and your demonstration of sustained predictive accuracy has established you as authority whose assessments should be taken seriously even when they seem counterintuitive or contradict conventional wisdom. Watch how predictive authority is reshaping your social position. People who might have previously dismissed your strategic analyses as speculation or opinion are now treating your forecasts as reliable information worth acting on. You've demonstrated that your predictions aren't wishful thinking or motivated reasoning. They're accurate forecasts based on genuine understanding of behavioral patterns and strategic dynamics. This demonstrated accuracy makes your future predictions more influential because people have evidence that your analytical framework produces reliable results. Some strategists are trying to learn from your predictive success by studying how you analyze situations and what patterns you attend to. They recognize that your ability to forecast behavior reveals analytical framework or observational skills they're lacking, and they want to develop similar capabilities. This attention makes you not just competitor but teacher whose methods are worth studying and emulating. Your role is expanding beyond participant in strategic competitions to expert whose analytical approach influences how others think about strategy. Others are seeking your predictions on situations where they need guidance, asking what you think certain opponents will do, how particular situations will develop, what moves would be most effective given strategic context. They're treating you as valuable resource whose forecasts can inform their own strategic planning. This consulting role gives you influence beyond your direct competitive actions because your predictions shape how others approach their own strategic challenges. A few organizations are trying to recruit you specifically because of demonstrated predictive capability, recognizing that ability to forecast opponent behavior and strategic developments is valuable across many contexts, from business to competitive environments to organizational dynamics. Your talent for accurate prediction is rare enough and valuable enough that entities are willing to offer significant resources to have access to your analytical insights. The architects observe that predictive authority recognition creates interesting form of power that's different from positional authority or resource control. You gain influence not through formal position or accumulated assets, but through demonstrated capability to see what others can't see, to forecast what others can't forecast, to understand patterns that remain invisible to most observers. This analytical authority is particularly robust because it's based on verifiable results. Your predictions either prove accurate or they don't, making your authority difficult to challenge through political maneuvering or social manipulation. Those who witnessed your predictions prove accurate have direct evidence of your capability that shapes their assessment. Regardless of other factors, your calm grin throughout the predictive success communicated that this capability is consistent rather than isolated achievement. You weren't surprised or relieved that predictions proved accurate because you expected them to be accurate based on confidence in your analytical framework. This consistency is what transforms reputation from someone who made impressive predictions once to someone whose predictions are reliably accurate and should be taken seriously. The grin said you knew what you were doing, and events confirmed that knowledge was justified. Something profound is crystallizing now that the architects call recognition of deterministic patterns in apparent chaos. Your predictive success is forcing observers to reconsider fundamental assumptions about how predictable human behavior actually is, challenging common belief that people are too complex and situations too variable for accurate behavioral forecasting. Your demonstration that behavior can be predicted with precision when observer understands relevant patterns is creating broader intellectual impact beyond your specific competitive success, contributing to growing recognition that much of what appears as unpredictable human choice is actually deterministic pattern following that becomes visible to sufficiently sophisticated analysis. Consider implications if human behavior is more predictable than most people assume. It would mean that sense of autonomous choice many people experience is partly illusion. They feel like they're making independent decisions based on rational analysis of options, but their choices are actually largely determined by psychological patterns, cognitive biases, and situational constraints that produce predictable outcomes. This doesn't necessarily eliminate free will in philosophical sense, but it does suggest that practical predictability of behavior is much higher than folk psychology assumes. Watch how different observers are processing implications of your predictive success. Some are accepting that their own behavior is probably more predictable than they'd like to believe. If you can forecast opponents' moves with that accuracy, they're probably equally predictable to sufficiently skilled observers. This recognition is humbling, but also potentially useful because it might motivate them to become more aware of their own patterns and more intentional about whether they want to continue following those patterns or deliberately develop different approaches. Some observers are resisting implications by maintaining that your specific opponents were unusually predictable, or that situation created constraints that made accurate prediction possible in this case, but wouldn't generalize to other contexts. This resistance protects their belief in human complexity and unpredictability by treating your success as exceptional case rather than as demonstration of general principle that behavior is broadly predictable when analyzed properly. Others are exploring implications for fields beyond strategic competition, recognizing that if behavioral prediction is possible at level you demonstrated, it has applications in negotiation, leadership, relationship management, teaching, therapy, and any other domain where understanding how people will respond is valuable. Your competitive success becomes case study with broader relevance for anyone interested in understanding and predicting human behavior. A few are experiencing existential discomfort with implications. They find idea that their behavior is predictable to be threatening to their self-concept. As autonomous agents who make genuine choices, they would prefer to believe they're unpredictable because unpredictability feels like freedom while predictability feels like mechanism. Your demonstration that prediction is possible challenges this preference by suggesting that freedom and mechanism might not be as opposed as they'd like to believe. The architects observe that recognition of deterministic patterns in apparent chaos is one of most significant intellectual contributions your predictive success provides beyond immediate competitive advantage. You're not just winning strategic competition, you're demonstrating principles about behavioral forecasting that challenge common assumptions and potentially advance collective understanding of how human decision-making actually works. Your calm grin throughout wasn't just confidence about specific predictions. It was confidence based on understanding deeper patterns that make behavior predictable. Despite surface appearance of complexity and choice, they walked into your plan because the plan was based on accurate model of how they would behave, and the accuracy of that model reveals something profound about relationship between conscious experience of choosing and underlying patterns that determine what choices actually get made.